Hello and welcome back. This is Cheryl. Today we're going to talk about using an alcohol ink lift pad. It's one of my favorite techniques to do. So the very first step is we're going to do a background with alcohol inks. Now we're doing them on Yupo paper. It has to be Yupo. It has to be a non-porous surface. Otherwise the alcohol ink will seep into the surface and not lift up. So I've got 4 different colors here. They're listed down below, and I'm just going to create a background using isopropyl alcohol to spread those inks around. When it comes to blowing the inks around, I'm actually using a hair tool that is low temp and it's got dual speed to it. So I can control how much speed I am blowing onto the alcohol inks. And you definitely want something that's low temp because Yupo paper is a plastic paper and it will melt if you use anything that has some heat to it. So I actually do this alcohol ink layer 3 times to build up the ink and get it nice and dark. I want to have a dark background because the more ink that's on the Yupo, the more there is to lift up and the more cards that I can create with the residual ink that is left on my stamp. So I'll just let you watch this and we'll talk about the rest when we get to it. If you get some areas that are really, really dark and built up with alcohol ink, you can use a paper towel to take some of that away. You can also use a paper towel to check and make sure that your alcohol ink is completely dry before you do the next step, which is what I was doing there. So now I've got my stamp ready. I'm going to take my alcohol ink lift pad and I'm going to stamp the image from that alcohol background and then stamp it onto glossy cardstock. Now, glossy cardstock shows off alcohol inks really, really well. I use the cardstock from Ranger. Some people have success with photo paper. I haven't found one that I've loved, but I also haven't spent much time trying different ones because I'm happy with how glossy photo or the glossy paper from Ranger works. So there's no point in me searching. So I'm going to lift this ink up and then I'm going to stamp it onto the glossy paper. I like to hold my stamp in the center and then just press around it so that my stamp doesn't move. And I want to make sure that I have good pressure to get a clear image. And look how pretty that is with the blended alcohol inks. So now I'm going to take a clean paper towel and I'm going to press it onto my Yupo background. I'm not moving the paper towel around, I'm just pressing it down and lifting the excess ink up. If you were to rub it on your paper, you'd be smearing that alcohol lift ink, and we're just trying to grab the excess up. So I do this 4 times, and by that time there's very little ink to remove, and at that point I take a clean portion of my paper towel and then I do rub some of the excess ink up to get a clearer image. You definitely don't want to miss the first step where you're just blotting the ink up. And see how just rubbing it a little bit, the image gets a little bit clearer there. So I've got my 2 images there. I'm going to set them to the side. I still have a bunch of ink left on that stamp. So what I'm going to do is I have some isopropyl alcohol in a mister bottle and I'm going to lightly mist my stamp and stamp it onto another piece of glossy cardstock. Now, this isn't going to create as clear of an image as the first stamped impression. It's going to be more of an alcohol ink watercolor look, and it's going to be a little bit lighter because some of the ink has already been stamped off. So you can see the 2 of them there. Still a beautiful impression, but when you look close, it's got more of a muted watercolor look. And then there's still ink on that stamp, so I'm going to stamp it onto just a piece of plain cardstock. Now, plain cardstock isn't quite as vibrant as glossy cardstock when you're using alcohol inks, but it still gives a really, really pretty image, and why not use that ink and create another card? So after waiting for those inks to completely dry, I made some very simple cards with them. I wanted the alcohol ink to be the star of the show. So I just added a white die cut to pop out that butterfly and focus on it. The second one is the very first stamped image I use. I just added a little bit of glossy accents to the center of the butterfly and some Stickles for some sparkle. For the third card, I added a butterfly die cut that was some glitter paper from a previous project. And then the fourth card, which is the watercolor on plain paper, I just inked up a white butterfly die cut with coordinating inks just to make that pop and have some dimension. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Don't forget to hit subscribe.